Hello everyone, my name is Brock Blake. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Lendio, and we are so grateful to have you here with us, coming from wherever you are across the United States. Small business owners, we are proud to work with small business owners across the United States. Today, I am coming from our headquarters live in Lehi, Utah. Got a little echo, sorry, give me 1 second. Here we go. We're coming from our headquarters just outside of Salt Lake City in Lehi, Utah. Today we're going to talk all about the Paycheck Protection Program. We are confident each one of you are in that application process. We're going to give you live updates on the details of the program overall, where we stand at Lendio, and any tips and tricks that we can give you to help you through the application process. We're grateful that you would trust us with your application, and we're doing all we can to be able to help each and every one of you to get approved, to get funded, to get money in your account, and so you can get back to business. And so the agenda today, we are going to, specifically, we're going to talk about a few things. At the updates, PPP updates, and then advice on getting your application through. We've seen a lot of different things, a lot of updates, and so we're going to give you all the details, all the tips and tricks, or if you're stuck, and give you all the answers hopefully today. So far, the SBA has approved approximately 3.1 million loans in the US for a total of $195 billion. That's around 68% of the program. As we know, there was $284 billion allocated in the program total, and 68% through. And we have, right now, as you all know, it's March 22nd. The program's supposed to end March 31st. We're going to give you some updates around the program ending date, as well as we think it will be extended. So question number one is, why is the program going slower? Last time, in 2 weeks, there was over $200 billion that was funded last April. And this time it's taken significantly longer to do that. The first reason why it's taking slower is because of fraud. There's many aspects of fraud, but what we are seeing, what the entire market is seeing, as we work with lenders across the United States, those that work with Lendio and those that don't, is an increased amount of fraud. When there is, what does that mean? You have people that are out there trying to falsify documents, falsify tax documents, falsify driver's license or other information, or they're not real business owners. And so the SBA has put in a lot more controls around how do we prevent fraud. And every bit of, and not only is it the SBA, it's Lendio, it's our lenders, every step along the way. That means every bit of attention that we are spending towards preventing and mitigating against fraud is time and attention we're taking away from legitimate business owners like you that are seeking to be able to get approved for a loan. And so that's sad. What that means is that we're going to likely request additional documentation than maybe what was required in round one. So we'll talk about that. What is the additional documentation that you can provide to help you kind of through a fast path to be able to get your loan approved and funded? Next, second draw loans. So last time around, everyone was getting a first draw loan, and so it was pretty straightforward and simple around, everyone looked the same. With this round, there's second draw loans, which means that, and there's very specific document types for each entity. So a sole prop is different than a C Corp, which is different than an S Corp, which is different than LLC, and so on. And each of them can get a first draw loan and a second draw loan. For those that are getting a second draw loan, what we found is that when you're filling out your application, many times you're accidentally, unintentionally providing inaccurate information about your first draw loan. So you may not have the exact loan amount. You may not have put in the exact SBA loan number, or the right EIDL loan amount, or the right EIDL number. That information is critical. When you apply for your second draw loan, the SBA is going to match up the information you provided versus the information that they have on their records and see if it matches up. If it doesn't, then it gets caught and it gets flagged, and you may have to, and the application may be held. The other aspect of a second draw loan that's preventing files from moving forward is there are actually errors on the first draw loan that may be correct on the second draw loan, but the SBA has them, like for example, they may have underwritten you based off your SSN last time instead of your tax ID number. When you put in your tax ID number this time and they match it up against your Social Security number from last time, it doesn't match up, and so the SBA puts a hold on it, and we have to go and try and manually correct that. So the information of making sure you have your first draw loan, all the details accurate and up to date is going to be critical to make sure you get that approved. The other reason why this program is going slower is because of the many updates. So the SBA is already on a regular basis continues to put updates. Some of these updates are really beneficial to the small business owner, and we're excited about them. Each update they do increases the complexity of running a program. And every bit of complexity, you have to create a new team, a new process, engineering around implementation, exceptions to that process, fallout to that process. So for example, on the Schedule C filers, we had many of you come in and apply under the net rules using line 31, and then with the new program rules, you wanted to change that to line 7. So our process, what we needed to do was prevent all Schedule C filers from moving forward to the SBA, and we want to know for sure from you, do you want to use net income or do you want to use gross income? And it's most of you, we've asked you to come back in, sign up or log back into your portal and select net or gross. Most of you have done that. There's still about 6,000 applicants that we're still waiting to hear back from. We're actually not pushing your file forward until we know, do you want to file under gross or do you want to file under net? And because we don't want to assume that you want it under net income, and we submit you, and then all of a sudden you decide you want to change that to gross, and then we have to cancel your PLP number, reactivate your application, ask you for additional documentation, and then redo it again. Just creates a lot of complexity. So those are a few things on why the program is going slower. Most of those are good for the small business owner, although many of you I know are anxious to be able to get your loan, and it may not sound great for you up front. The good news here is this, that we anticipate the program will be extended beyond March 31st to May 31st, so giving an additional 2 months. The SBA, Congress, everyone has recognized that the program, that there are a lot of places where applications are getting held up. This actually has bipartisan support in Washington, D.C. It passed in the House with a vote of 415 to 3 in the affirmative, and it's supposed to go to the Senate this week, and once it passes the Senate, it'll be signed into law. We anticipate that it will be signed into law. In fact, there have been comments from the White House that have said as much. We cannot guarantee that, but we believe that hopefully that gives everyone a little bit of a sigh of relief, calm down a little bit, because that the program date won't be ending next week, March 31st, but extended. What that will mean will be that you can apply through May 31st, but you can be funded all the way until June 30th. They're leaving a funding window open after May 31st to June 30th to allow lenders to work through the backlog and the applications and get them funded by the end of the month. So changing topics now. Lendio, where are we at with Lendio Process, and then what tips can we give you around if your file is somewhere stuck or you're not making progress, what can we do to help you out? Let's talk through those details. So Lendio has processed first of all, we have funded about 25,000 loans already. Businesses that have come to Lendio and applied and funded nearly $1 billion of loans that have been funded through the Lendio platform. There are still many of you that are out there waiting or going through the application process. Our average loan size is around $33,000. Program-wide across the U.S., the average loan size is $63,000. We're really proud of that number because our focus has been, let's help the smallest of small businesses get loans approved and funded. And so our average loan size is about half the average, the national average. 43% of our applicants are sole proprietors. 91% of our applicants are with 10 employees or fewer. So let's say you're one of those that hasn't been funded yet and you've applied. I want to mention a few changes that we have made in the program that are going to benefit you. When we first launched the PPP program, the PPP, we had to there was so much demand, we hired nearly 1,000 people to be able to take care of each one of you. The goal with those 1,000 people, and you're hiring, you're training, you're getting them up to speed on the Paycheck Protection Program. And our initial thought was, let's have them specialize in different aspects of the application funnel. There's some good aspects of that because we got a lot of our agents up to speed quickly. But there were some negative aspects about that as well that we've decided to change that we believe will benefit you. The pain with that is that because we had specialization in all aspects of the funnel, your application would get handled by one person, they would check off an aspect, then they'd move it to the next funding manager, who would move it to the next funding manager, and move it to the next funding manager. And so you were getting passed around to 4 or 5 managers with a goal to help you get through the process as quickly as you possibly can. The feedback that we heard from each one of you was that getting passed around to so many funding managers was not an ideal experience. And so we have decided to change that, and we did that a few weeks ago. What did we change it to? Now you are going to have one assigned funding manager that is going to work with you from start to finish through to getting your file funded. That funding manager will have 2 to 3 assistants that are going to help them with your application. An assistant that's going to help with payroll validation, an assistant that's going to help with document validation, assistant that may help with some of the fraud checks, or assistant with contracting review. That doesn't mean you're going to have to necessarily work with those assistants, but they are going to help the funding manager who will work with you. So if you are curious, if you're not sure who your funding manager is, the best way to know is to log into your Lendio account. Use your username and password, log in, and you'll be able to see there inside the portal, it'll show the name, the phone number, and the email address of your funding manager. And that'll give you an opportunity to know who you should be communicating to or communicating with on a regular basis. And so if you are unsure or it's bounced around a few times, in fact, we encourage all of our applicants to log in to their portal, look who their funding manager is, and make sure you're communicating directly with that person. It'll be their responsibility and their assignment to help you all the way through the process, all the way to funding. Now, there may be some funding managers that may leave Lendio, and there may be an occasional opportunity where we have to reassign you to a new funding manager. We are trying to avoid that at all costs. Our goal is to be able to make sure you're working with one person from start to finish so that you know who you can work with and they can be responsive to you. Log into your account and find out who they are. Okay, now, once you're working with your funding manager, how do you keep your application moving forward? The most important thing you can do is the more information that you provide, the better. Especially now with so many applicants, or with the number of applicants that are trying to defraud the system, It's requiring us and other lenders to ask for additional documentation along the way. So make sure, go ahead to the next slide, please. Make sure that your application is thorough and complete. So what does that mean? Driver's license, front and back. And it needs to be in color. And a nice, clear image of your driver's license, that your driver's license is not expired. Secondly, your application has to be signed. If you have gone into your application and you've updated it, that means that we need you to re-sign it. So update your application, get all the way to the end until you can e-sign. If we have an application that's not signed, the SBA will not allow us to move it forward. Third, voided check. Some have been trying to provide a digital version of your voided check, and most lenders will not accept a digital version of your check. So what we recommend is that you get a printed check, that you write on it in pen, void, and it's got clearly the name of the business with the address on the voided check, your routing number and your account number. That routing number and account number must match the routing number and account number provided by your bank statements. So all of those need to match up. Back, please. Fourth, your tax returns. Ideally providing both your 2019 and your 2020 tax returns. And for those of you that are sole props or self-employed, independent contractors, we highly recommend that you provide your entire tax return, the entire 1040, not just your Schedule C. All of these little details are going to help to make your application move faster than others that only provide partial information. And then finally, any documentation that you can provide that can verify that you were in business and operating before February 15th of 2020. We'd love to see articles of incorporation. If you can get a Secretary of State, February 2020 bank statement, invoices, any documentation like that helps us prove that you were in business prior to February 15th is going to be valuable. So those are a few tips on the front end. We encourage you to be realistic and honest when completing your application. Don't try and inflate revenue or other numbers, because part of the process of our lenders of verifying that information is they're double checking, like your information from your driver's license meets your information on your tax returns and so on. And so getting all of that clean and straightforward will be helpful. Okay. Submitting all those required docs, uploading them, emailing them to your funding manager will help the review process to make sure that it's all there and we can validate it and we can move it forward. Here are a few things that are just extra. There's a phase in the process where you've got an SBA number and it may not be moving forward. I'll talk about this in more detail in a minute, where this is requiring additional, our lenders are requiring additional fraud check reviews or additional, they call it know your customer, where they're connecting the business owner to the business. And if you want to be proactive, again, to help your file move forward, these are documentation that you can provide. Articles of incorporation or articles of organization. A utility bill. So utility bill of the business, meaning if you have of the business location providing a utility bill, and or a utility bill showing the business owner and the business owner's home address. So that might be an electric bill or something like that to validate that the applicant is a real person. I know it sounds funny, but these are all steps that help in the application process and that the SBA is asking us to review. If you have the ability to go on your Secretary of State, logging into your website on your state web and taking a snapshot or a print off to show that you're a real business, that will also help. Any government issue documentation, so some are registered with different entities in their state or different regulatory agencies, those will help as well. Clean versions of all those documentations will be most beneficial. A PDF version is better than a picture, although a picture will work. And the electronic version versus handwritten is also better and will help accelerate the process. So I wanted to take a step back and I wanted to map out the different stages. And so you can say, this is where I'm stuck, and then identify common reasons why you might be stuck in each of those areas. So first of all, you apply for a loan. Once we get the full application, we do our payroll validation, we do our document validation, then we submit it to the lender. Once the lender does an initial review, then they have the ability to submit it to the SBA for approval. The SBA will do their own audits and checks that take 48 to 72 hours. Then they'll come back with an approval, a decline, an on-hold answer, or under review, and I'll go through those in detail. Once it passes the SBA approval, it goes for one more final review by the lender, and then it goes to contracting and fund. So let's talk about each one of those stages and get a little more specific. If you're in one of those stages and your application is stuck, what can you do to move it forward? So if you do not have an SBA number yet, it means that your application is likely incomplete. Meaning we don't have enough payroll information to validate that your payroll is legitimate. Maybe we don't have a clean identification, driver's license that is color front and back. We may not have the full tax returns, or we may not have the document that shows that you were in business prior to February 15th. Payroll validation is different for each entity and usually requires a third-party payroll report or business tax returns. And the easiest ones are the quarterly tax returns, the 941s, the filings, or a 944, or it could be Schedule C with your entire 1040 tax return statement. So if you don't have an SBA number yet, that's the first place to look, is did I provide enough documentation for them to validate payroll? We have plenty of blog posts online that will walk you through all the different entity types and the documentation that we need for each one of those entity types. Okay, if you feel like you've provided all the documentation and you still don't have an SBA number, it's likely that your application is under review by the SBA. It may be declined, or it might be on hold. And these are the most painful ones. Because unfortunately, we can't just go to the SBA and send them a list and say, every single one of these 500 files we validated and they're legitimate. Each one of them requires a separate email and a separate certification for each that is written to the SBA. They have to review it and they have to send it back, and that takes a long time. So this is a painful, if you're in this stage, this is painful. I recognize that. It's not a Lendio problem. It's not a lender problem. It is the SBA going through their reviews, and all we can ask for is your patience. What are some of those holds or the under reviews? Let's talk through the details. So some of those reviews, I gotta just grab my documentation because I can't see my teleprompter on this. Sorry, bear with me for a second. Okay, here we go. So submission fell. This is one of the reports we get back from the SBA. It says, you are likely seeing this message because your first PPP loan was booked under a social security number or an EIN type that is not the same as the loan you are now attempting to enter. These values must match for your submission and move forward. please correct the instructions around tax ID and social security number. So basically what has happened with many files, this is the number one error. Last round, the SBA likely swapped SSN and EIN. And so this time around, when you submit it correctly, it comes up as an error. And we have to go and contact the SBA and make sure that they know which is your SSN and which is your EIN, and make sure those map. And then the SBA has to approve that and give us the green light to be able to submit that forward. Again, a very manual process. The second one is a submission fail where I talked about this earlier. Your first draw loan information is incorrect on your second draw application. I saw one the other day where the applicant said that their first draw loan was $28,000, but in reality it was like $27,800, and so the exact loan amount was off. And the SBA put that on hold. They put it on a decline. We have to go and recorrect the loan amount and resubmit it. And so I would double check if you're getting a second draw loan. Look at the information you provided us on the application. Is the SBA loan number correct? Is the loan amount correct? Is the lender correct? If you got an EIDL loan, is the EIDL loan amount correct? Or the EIDL grant? Is that grant amount correct? And is the EIDL number correct? So those will be, all of those have to be exact for us to be able to get them right and move it forward. Another one might be that the SBA declines it because you inserted the number of employees, but what they have on record is less. So you might say, we have one employee, but they believe you should have 15, or you say that you have 15 employees and they only have record of 2, and so they'll put that on hold, and you will have to provide additional documentation showing the number of employees, their names, their information, and so they can validate the number of employees you have. 2 more on the SBA holds. Let's see. I talked about this SBA loan number and loan amount. I already hit that. And another one would be the SBA did a check, and they believe that you registered your entity after February 15th of 2020. You may have been in business prior to that, and you will have to provide additional documentation showing that you were in fact in business prior to February 15th, because their records indicate that you were not. So if you feel like you've got all the documentation, you haven't got an approval, it's probably one of those errors that's being held up by the SBA. And you can reach out to your funding manager, and we can help give you the error, and we can try and figure out how to resolve that. But again, please be patient with us on that. That takes a little bit of time. Okay. Now let's go. I am on the wrong slide. Okay, we're going to submit to SBA. Okay, if you have an SBA number, but no contract yet. So you've got an approval number, you haven't received a contract, you're in this no man's land waiting for the contract. You likely are in a fraud review check, or what's called KYC, KYB check, meaning that the lender has to validate that you, the business owner, own the business, and that all the documentation to be able to show that it doesn't fall on one of the terrorist lists or other fraudulent lists that are out there. And so to be proactive, as I talked about before, providing articles of incorporation that has your name as the business owner on the documents, providing a Secretary of State filing, utility bill showing address. If you are not past the getting contract, I would be proactive about providing that information, because what sometimes happens is you fail that review, and we're in the process of, we need to reach back out to you, tell you what you're missing, and come back to us. If you're in that stage, be proactive by reaching out to your funding manager and providing some of that information. Lastly, if you have a contract and you've signed the contract and it has not been funded yet, from signed contract to funding, it's taking anywhere from 5 to 7 days to actually get money in your account. Because what usually happens, you sign the contract, it goes through a contract review stage, which I'll talk about here shortly. But then it gets on the funding list for the lender. They have huge lists each day that go to funding, and it takes 24 hours on the funding list, and then they submit an ACH, and that ACH usually takes 2 to 4 business days. So they may process it today, and you may not get the money in your account till Thursday or Friday. So be a little bit patient. If you have not received your money after signing it within 5 to 10 days, then there's an error. And there may be an error no matter what. And this is where you need to double check. What we've identified is that there's 3 types of error on the contract. Number 1, the routing and account information might be swapped. So you might be putting, when we ask you for your routing information, your account information, you might be putting the account information in the routing number and the routing number in your account information. And so that gets messed up quite a bit. The second thing is the routing information and the account information may not match the voided check and the bank statements. And if that's the case, it will not be funded. So you need to make sure that your contract information matches your voided check and your bank statement. All the same on all 3 of them. There might be other information on the contract, like one of the contracts had the business owner's information on the name of the business and the business name in the field for the owner. And so those were mixed up. If you are a sole prop, the name on the contract needs to be your name. Not the business DBA, but your name. And so if you're getting your contract, make sure that the name matches, the routing number matches, the account number matches, and so that when it goes through that final quality control review, it can pass and move forward. So once it passes that, you should be able to the stage of funding. Hopefully, I know we went through a lot today, and there were a lot of details and a lot we threw at you. I'll just reiterate 3 more things, or repeat 3 things. If you don't know who your funding manager is, log into your account, look him or her up, and you should be able to have their name and email and phone number to reach out to your funding manager. So we encourage you to do that. Second, we are trying to mitigate fraud and make sure that the illegitimate businesses don't get funded and the legitimate businesses do. So the more documentation that you can provide around the legitimacy of your business, the better, and it will accelerate your file. And then third, please be patient with us. We are trying. We literally care about every application. We have many team members working as fast as they possibly can to help you through the process. We are sincere when we say we care to help save the American dream for each business owner. And there are so many different complications and complexities of this round. Now, we're not making excuses. It's just the reality of the program. So your patience and understanding will be helpful. And we will not be apologetic around asking for additional documentation, because sometimes the information that's provided does not meet the standards of our lenders or the SBA to pass. Hopefully that information is valuable to you. We look forward to helping you move your application forward, get approved, get funded, and get back on your feet to help you grow your business, and be proactive in 2021. Thanks for joining us today. I appreciate you working with us, and best of luck.